Hey there. Welcome back. Tonight we're going to talk about something that most of us interact with almost every day without really thinking about how it came to be. We're going to talk about Amazon. Not in a business school kind of way, not with charts or competitive analysis, just a slow, quiet story of how something started as one small idea and grew, one careful step at a time, into something that now shapes how much of the world moves goods and information. So settle in. There's no rush. We're just going to let this story unfold at its own pace, and you can follow along as lightly or as deeply as you like. It starts, as so many things do, with a single person sitting with a single question. And that question, in this case, was something like, what is the internet going to change, and what should I do about it? That was 1994. The internet existed, technically. It had been around in various forms since the late 1960s, originally as a network connecting universities and government research institutions. For most of its early life, it was a place for academics and engineers, people who knew how to use command line interfaces and didn't mind the slow, clunky experience of navigating it. It wasn't something most people had ever seen or thought about. There were no consumer apps, no social media, no streaming services, no e-commerce. There was mostly text, some academic papers, some news groups where people discussed topics they cared about, and a general sense among people who were paying attention that something significant was happening even if nobody was quite sure what. In the early 1990s, the World Wide Web was introduced by Tim Berners-Lee, a British computer scientist working at a physics lab in Switzerland. The web was a layer built on top of the internet, a way of organizing information into pages that could link to each other. It made the internet navigable in a way it hadn't been before. You could click a link and go somewhere. Browsers started being developed that let ordinary people look at these pages without needing to understand the underlying technology. And slowly, the number of people using this new web started to grow. There was a statistic floating around in 1994 that caught the attention of a young man named Jeff Bezos, who was working at the time for a hedge fund in New York called D. Shaw. The statistic said that usage of the World Wide Web was growing at something like 2,300% per year, which is an almost incomprehensible number. If something is growing at 2,300% per year, it is not just growing, it is transforming. And Bezos, who had studied computer science and economics at Princeton, and who had been working in the world of finance where numbers were taken very seriously, looked at that number and felt something shift in his thinking. He wasn't the only one looking at the web and sensing opportunity. But he was one of the people who turned that sensing into a plan. And the plan was, in its initial form, quite modest. He wasn't imagining a trillion-dollar company. He was imagining something much smaller, something more manageable and specific. He made a list. He sat down and thought about what categories of products might work well being sold over the internet, and he came up with about 20 of them. Books were on the list. And the more he thought about it, the more books seemed like the right place to start. There were a few reasons for this, and they're worth sitting with because they illuminate something about how the whole thing was conceived from the beginning. Books had something that many other products didn't, which was that there were a very large number of distinct titles available. A physical bookstore, even a large one, could only stock so many books. Even the biggest chain stores of the time, places like Barnes and Noble and Borders, which were enormous and impressive in their day, could hold maybe 100,000 or 150,000 titles. But there were millions of books in print at any given time. A catalog much larger than any physical store could ever be would be something genuinely useful to people who were trying to find books they couldn't locate locally. Books also had certain properties that made them practical for shipping. They weren't fragile in the way that electronics or glassware might be. They didn't expire like food. They were relatively uniform in their shape and weight, which made it easier to think about logistics. And crucially, publishers had already established a distribution system that someone starting a new kind of bookstore could potentially plug into, which meant Bezos didn't have to figure out how to source books from scratch. So he made his decision. He and his wife Mackenzie loaded up a car and drove west. He had a laptop. He wrote the business plan for the company as they drove, and she drove while he typed. They were heading to Seattle, Washington, which was chosen for a few reasons. It was near Ingram, one of the largest book distributors in the country, which was based just across the border in Oregon. It had a strong technology culture because of the presence of companies like Microsoft. And it was a relatively small state by population, which in those early days of internet commerce had implications for sales tax that made it advantageous compared to larger states like California or New York. These were the kinds of practical, quiet decisions that went into choosing where to begin. Nothing dramatic. Just a series of reasonable considerations leading to a choice. They arrived in Seattle in the summer of 1994 and rented a house. The garage of that house became the first office of what would eventually become Amazon. The name wasn't Amazon yet. In the beginning, Bezos had been considering calling the company Cadabra, as in abracadabra, the old magician's phrase. A lawyer he consulted pointed out that over the phone it sounded too much like cadaver, which was not an association a new company particularly wanted. So the name was changed before the company ever went live. The name Amazon was chosen partly because it started with the letter A, which would put it near the top of alphabetical listings, and partly because the Amazon River is the largest river in the world by volume, and there was something appealing about that kind of scale, that kind of sense of something vast and natural and flowing. Amazon. It had a good sound to it. The website went live in July of 1995. And in those first days it was extraordinarily simple. The design was plain and utilitarian. There were no product images at first, just titles and descriptions and prices. The ordering system was basic. When an order came in, Bezos and the handful of people working with him would buy the book from a distributor, receive it, pack it, and ship it themselves. They were doing this in the garage with folding tables and some packing tape. It was entirely manual, entirely human, entirely small scale. And yet orders came in. The first few weeks after launch were characterized by something between excitement and chaos. The company had been set up with more infrastructure than it had customers to begin with. But that changed quickly. Word spread through the early internet community because the web was still small enough that something useful could circulate through it relatively fast. Reviews started appearing on early tech publications and websites. People who found the site and bought books sometimes told other people. And gradually the number of orders grew. There's something worth noting about those early days that sometimes gets lost in the later story of enormous warehouses and global logistics networks. In the beginning, packing books in a garage was something Bezos and his colleagues actually did with their hands. They knelt on a concrete floor wrapping books in paper, carrying boxes to the post office, working through the night when there were too many orders to fill during the day. There's a story that is sometimes told about how they were packing books one night and Bezos said to a colleague that their backs were aching from kneeling on the concrete, and wouldn't it be a good idea to get some kneeling pads? And the colleague apparently said, "We should just get tables." Which seems obvious in retrospect, but in the moment of doing something new and improvised, sometimes the obvious thing doesn't surface immediately. The point is that it was physical, hands-on, improvised work. And this quality, the willingness to do things manually before they could be done systematically, was something that characterized the early company, and in a way continued to characterize it through many later stages as well. When you're building something new, you do things by hand first, and then you figure out how to automate what you understand. In those first months, sales grew in a way that was genuinely surprising even to Bezos. The company had projected revenues of about $1 million in the first year, which already felt ambitious. The actual revenues in the first year were closer to $5 million. People were finding the site, finding it useful, and coming back. The catalog of books available through Amazon was indeed much larger than anything a physical store could offer. If you were looking for something obscure, something a local bookstore wouldn't stock, Amazon was likely to have it or be able to order it. That was the core value proposition, and it worked. What Amazon was discovering in those first months was something about the specific way the internet changed the economics of retail. In a physical store, your selection is limited by the physical space you have. Every item you choose to stock comes at the cost of something else you could have stocked instead, plus the cost of the shelf space itself. Rent is expensive. Storage is expensive. So physical stores have to make choices. They have to concentrate on what will sell most reliably, what will move quickly, what will justify the floor space it occupies. This tends to push physical retail toward popular, mainstream items and away from niche or obscure ones. On the internet, the constraint of physical space is removed, or at least dramatically reduced. You can list millions of items in a digital catalog with relatively little additional cost per item. And because you can do that, you can serve not just the customers who want the most popular things, but also the customers who want the specific thing that only they and a few others want. This principle, which was later written about under various names including the idea of the long tail, was something Amazon discovered early and took seriously. The value of being able to offer everything, or close to everything, was enormous. And it was something that could only exist in the form that Amazon was creating it. So the catalog kept growing. And as it grew, The ordering and fulfillment process that had been managed manually in a garage needed to become something more organized. By the end of 1995, the company had outgrown the garage and moved into a small office space. More people were being hired. Software was being written to manage inventory and orders. The process of receiving books, storing them, picking the right ones when orders came in, packing them, and shipping them was being thought about more systematically. This logistics challenge, the question of how to move physical goods from one place to another reliably and efficiently, turned out to be one of the central and most enduring problems that Amazon would work on. In those early days, it was a relatively simple version of the problem because the product was just books and the operation was small. But the questions being asked were the same questions that would eventually be asked at vastly larger scale. Where should inventory be stored? How should it be organized so that the right item can be found quickly? How do you process an order from the moment it arrives to the moment a package goes out the door in a way that is both accurate and fast? How do you coordinate with shipping carriers? How do you handle returns and customer service? The answers developed slowly, iteratively, as the company grew. And the early answers were often imperfect, because they were the first attempts. The early warehouse was not a model of efficiency. Books were shelved somewhat randomly, in ways that made sense to the people setting it up but which created problems when orders started coming in faster than they could be filled. It took time and experience to develop better systems. Something that helped was the attitude that mistakes and inefficiencies were information. When something went wrong or was slower than it should be, the question asked was not only how do we fix this instance of the problem, but what does this tell us about the system, and how should the system be changed so this kind of problem doesn't recur. This orientation toward learning from what goes wrong, rather than simply patching it and moving on, was something that shaped the culture of the company from early on. In 1996, the company moved to a larger space and hired more people. It also began working on what would become one of its most distinctive features, the customer review system. The idea that customers could write their own reviews of products, that their opinions would appear on the product page alongside the product description, was not an obvious choice at the time. Some publishers were skeptical, even hostile, to the idea. If a customer wrote a negative review of a book, that might discourage other customers from buying it. Wouldn't it be better to just have positive descriptions and let people decide for themselves? But Bezos had a specific view about this, which was that Amazon's goal was to help customers make good decisions, not to sell them any particular product. If a book was not good, it was better for the customer to know that before buying it than to discover it afterward. And if a customer trusted Amazon to give them honest information, including negative information, they would trust Amazon more and come back more reliably. This philosophy, that being genuinely useful to the customer was more important than maximizing any individual transaction, was something that ran through many of the early decisions. The review system went live, and customers used it extensively. It turned out that people had a lot to say about books they had read, and many of them were happy to share those opinions with strangers. The reviews became a genuine resource, something that added value to the site beyond just the transactional function of ordering books. People browsed reviews. People read reviews before buying things. People contributed reviews as a kind of public service to other readers. And the aggregate of all those reviews over time became a kind of collective intelligence about what was worth reading and what wasn't. Amazon went public in May of 1997. At that point, the company had been operating for about 2 years, had revenues of around $15 million in the most recent quarter, and was not yet profitable. The decision to go public was partly about raising capital for continued growth and partly about the recognition that the internet economy was moving fast and maintaining momentum required resources. The stock offering valued the company at around $440 million, which to many observers seemed extraordinarily high for a company that had never made a profit. But the stock sold, and the company now had the funding to grow more aggressively. Bezos wrote a letter to shareholders that accompanied the IPO prospectus, and it contained language that was unusual for a letter of that kind. He talked explicitly about the long term, about being willing to sacrifice short-term profits for long-term growth, about making investments that might take years to pay off. He said the company was in day one, meaning it was still at the very beginning of what it could become. This framing of constant early-stage effort, the idea that Amazon was always still at its beginning no matter how large it grew, became something that was returned to repeatedly over the years. In the immediate post-IPO period, the company used its new resources to expand. Expansion meant two things mainly. It meant expanding the product catalog beyond books, and it meant expanding the physical infrastructure needed to handle a growing volume of orders. The expansion of product categories came in steps. Music was added in 1998. DVDs and videos followed. Electronics, toys, and other categories were added over time. Each new category brought its own challenges, because different kinds of products have different storage requirements, different supplier relationships, different shipping characteristics. Adding a new product category wasn't just a software project. It was an entire operational project involving sourcing, warehouse space, logistics, and customer service. The company approached each new category as its own problem to be solved, building the infrastructure for it carefully before launching. The expansion of physical infrastructure was equally methodical. The early distribution model had been to order books from distributors as customers ordered them, which kept inventory costs low but also meant that fulfillment was slow and sometimes unreliable. As the company grew and began to stock more of its own inventory, it needed warehouse space. And the warehouses needed to be in locations that allowed for efficient shipping to customers across the country. The first major fulfillment center was in Seattle. Others were built in Delaware, Georgia, Nevada, and Kansas. Each was chosen with attention to proximity to major population centers, to shipping routes, to the tax implications of having a physical presence in a given state. The fulfillment centers were large, much larger than ordinary warehouses, because the volume of orders was large and the diversity of products was large. And within them, the challenge of organizing inventory in a way that allowed items to be found quickly and accurately was approached with increasing sophistication. Something that the company discovered early in the development of its fulfillment centers was counterintuitive to people who hadn't thought about it. You might imagine that organizing a warehouse full of books or products would mean putting similar things together, grouping all the books in a given genre on the same shelves, keeping electronics near each other, so that it would be easy to find what you were looking for. But this intuitive approach turned out to create problems. If everything in a particular area was of the same type, then during busy periods many people would be in that area at once, creating congestion. And because similar items looked alike, the chance of picking the wrong item increased. The solution that Amazon developed and refined was what's sometimes called chaotic storage. Items were stored not by category but essentially at random, wherever there was an open space. Each item's location was tracked in the computer system. When an order came in, the system would identify the exact location of the item in the warehouse and route a worker to that precise spot to pick it. Because similar items were spread throughout the facility rather than concentrated together, congestion was reduced. And because the worker was guided to an exact location for a specific item, the chance of error was lower than if they had to distinguish between many similar products stored near each other. This kind of solution, finding a better approach by questioning the intuitive one, was characteristic of how Amazon thought about its operations. The warehouse was not just a place to store things. It was a complex system that had to be designed carefully. And over time, the design of that system became one of the things the company was best at. By the late 1990s, the company was growing very fast by any measure, but it was also spending enormous amounts of money. The internet economy of that period was characterized by a general belief that growth was the most important thing, that capturing market share quickly was worth almost any price, that the companies that grew fastest would eventually dominate their markets, and that profitability could come later. Amazon was operating in that environment and drawing on it. It expanded aggressively, invested heavily in technology and infrastructure, and posted losses year after year while revenues grew. This approach generated both admiration and skepticism. There were people who looked at Amazon's growth and saw a company building something durable and important, a new kind of commerce that would transform how people bought things. And there were people who looked at the losses and wondered whether the whole thing was a kind of elaborate speculation, whether there was actually a sustainable business underneath all the spending. The crash of the dot-com bubble in 2000 and 2001 sharpened this question considerably. The broader internet economy experienced a dramatic correction. Many companies that had been valued highly and had spent freely went out of business. Stock prices collapsed. The enthusiasm of the late 1990s was replaced by a much more cautious and skeptical mood. Amazon's stock price fell by almost 90% from its peak. People who had bought shares at the height of the bubble were holding investments that were now worth a small fraction of what they had paid. Critics were loud in suggesting that Amazon was heading toward the same fate as the many internet companies that had already failed. But Amazon did not fail. And the reason it did not fail is worth sitting with, because it says something about the difference between the company and many of the others that went under during that period. Amazon had been building something real, something operational, something that customers found genuinely useful. The revenues were real. The customers were real. The fulfillment centers and the logistics systems, and the technology were real. And by 2001, the company was moving toward profitability. It posted its first profitable quarter in late 2001, a small profit but a real one, and that shifted the narrative. The year after the dot-com crash was a year of consolidation for Amazon, of tightening operations and focusing on what the company actually did well rather than expanding into every possible area. But consolidation didn't mean stagnation. Even during that period, there were things being worked on that would turn out to be very significant. One of them was the development of the third-party marketplace. The idea was to allow other sellers, individuals and businesses who had products to sell, to list those products on Amazon's website alongside Amazon's own offerings. A customer looking for a particular book or electronic item would see results from Amazon itself and also from other sellers, and could choose which seller to buy from. The prices would be visible and comparable. The transaction would flow through Amazon's system, giving customers some protection and giving sellers access to Amazon's large customer base. This was a significant structural change in what Amazon was. Before the marketplace, Amazon was a retailer, a company that bought goods and sold them to customers. With the marketplace, Amazon also became a platform, a place where other sellers could conduct commerce, with Amazon taking a cut of each transaction. The distinction mattered because a platform can grow in ways that a purely retail operation cannot. If you are a retailer, your capacity to sell is limited by the inventory you can source and the logistics you can run. If you are a platform, your capacity to facilitate transactions grows with the number of sellers and buyers on your platform, and you are not limited by your own inventory. The marketplace was initially met with some skepticism, including internal skepticism. There were concerns that third-party sellers might offer inferior products or poor service, and that customers would blame Amazon for those bad experiences. Managing the quality of a marketplace where you don't control the products or the sellers is genuinely difficult. But over time, the company developed systems for monitoring seller performance, for managing customer complaints, for ensuring that the marketplace maintained standards that kept customers trusting it. And the marketplace grew to the point where third-party sellers accounted for a very large fraction of the total units sold on Amazon. There was another development taking shape around the same time that would turn out to be equally consequential, in its own different way. The company had been building, over many years, an enormous amount of technology infrastructure to support its own operations. The servers and data storage and networking equipment needed to run a large e-commerce site were substantial, and the engineering teams that maintained and improved them had developed real expertise in building large-scale computing systems. At some point, someone began to ask whether that expertise, and the infrastructure it had built, might be something that could be offered to others. The idea that eventually became Amazon Web Services grew from this question. The specific history of how and when the idea took its final shape is not entirely clear, but the broad outline is that the company's engineers recognized that they had built something valuable in their computing infrastructure, that other businesses might benefit from being able to use similar infrastructure without having to build it themselves, and that selling access to that infrastructure could be a new kind of business. The model that emerged was renting computing capacity, storage, and other services over the internet on an as-needed basis. A startup company that needed a website and a database, and the ability to handle a large number of users didn't have to buy its own servers and set up its own data center. It could pay Amazon a fee, use Amazon's servers, and scale its usage up or down depending on its needs. This model, which eventually came to be called cloud computing, was genuinely novel at the time, and it changed the economics of building technology companies in a profound way. Before cloud computing, starting a technology company required a substantial upfront investment in hardware. You needed servers, you needed a place to put them, you needed people to maintain them. This created a significant barrier to entry. With cloud computing, the barrier was dramatically lowered. A startup could launch with almost no hardware investment, could scale quickly if it grew, and could avoid the waste of having bought more capacity than it needed or the pain of not having bought enough. This made it easier to start new technology companies, and many of the companies that grew to prominence in the years after Amazon Web Services launched built themselves on Amazon's infrastructure. Amazon Web Services launched in 2006 in its initial form, though earlier versions of some services had appeared in 2002 and 2004. It grew steadily and eventually became, by revenue and profit, one of the most significant parts of the Amazon business. In a way, it was a different kind of business from retail, more technical, more business to business, less visible to ordinary consumers. But it was enormously profitable and provided resources that helped fund everything else the company was doing. Around the same time that Amazon Web Services was developing, another project was underway that had a different character. It was about reading. The idea was a device, a piece of hardware, designed specifically to make reading digital books comfortable and pleasant. The existing ways to read digital text, on a computer screen or a phone, were not particularly good for reading in the way that reading a book was good for reading. Screen glare was an issue. The quality of the text was an issue. The battery life of a device that had a backlit screen was an issue. The team working on what would become the Kindle was trying to solve these problems. They used a technology called electronic ink, which displayed text in a way that looked much more like printed text and reflected light like paper rather than emitting it like a screen. The result was easier on the eyes for extended reading. The device was light and thin. The battery lasted weeks rather than hours. And it was connected wirelessly, which meant that books could be purchased and downloaded in less than a minute. When the first Kindle launched in November of 2007, it sold out within hours. This surprised even the people who had worked on it. The demand was there in a way that wasn't entirely expected. People wanted to read books digitally, wanted the convenience of being able to carry many books in one thin device, wanted the ability to have a book in their hands moments after deciding to read it. The Kindle provided these things, and it found its audience quickly. The Kindle was significant for Amazon for several reasons. It was a hardware product, which was a new kind of thing for a company that had primarily been a software and logistics operation. It represented a deepening of the company's relationship with books specifically, since Amazon had started as a bookstore, and here it was now selling a new kind of reading device. and it created a new market for digital books, which Amazon was positioned to supply through its existing relationships with publishers and its technical capabilities. The Kindle also illustrated something about the way Amazon thought about product development, which was that the device itself was not the primary product. The device was a means of access to content, to books, and eventually other digital media. The revenue and the lasting customer relationship came from the content. A customer who bought a Kindle was likely to buy many books through Amazon over the following years. The device was an investment in that long-term relationship rather than primarily a way to make money on the hardware itself. This kind of thinking, which prioritized the long-term customer relationship over any individual transaction, ran through many of the decisions Amazon made in this period and later. It was the same thinking that had led to the customer review system in the early days, the same thinking that would eventually lead to the Prime membership program. If you could give customers a reason to trust Amazon and to feel that being an Amazon customer was genuinely valuable, they would come back reliably, and the cumulative value of that relationship would exceed the cost of any individual thing you might give up to earn their trust. The Prime membership program launched in 2005. The basic proposition was simple: pay an annual fee and receive free 2-day shipping on eligible items. At the time, 2-day shipping was something customers could get, but they paid for it, and the per-order shipping fees were something that created friction, a reason to hesitate before placing an order. If every order required a shipping payment, customers would sometimes decide not to order something small or inexpensive because the shipping costs made it feel less worth it. If shipping was already paid through an annual membership, that friction largely disappeared. The effect on customer behavior was significant. Prime members placed orders more frequently than non-members. They also tended to buy more different kinds of things through Amazon because the shipping cost wasn't creating a barrier. The annual membership created a kind of psychological commitment as well. If you had paid for a membership, you had an incentive to use it, to get value from it, which meant you would tend to go to Amazon first when you needed to buy something. This dynamic, where the membership itself encouraged more purchasing, was one of the reasons the program became so valuable. Over time, Prime was expanded to include many more benefits beyond shipping. Streaming video and music were added. Early access to deals was added. A lending library for Kindle books was added. Photo storage was added. Each new benefit increased the value of the membership and made customers more likely to renew it. And the more benefits there were, the harder it was for any single competitor to replicate the full package, because no single competitor could easily match all of it at once. The expansion of Prime happened alongside an expansion of the logistics network that supported it. 2-day shipping for members meant that the company had to be able to actually deliver within 2 days, reliably, to customers across the country. This required warehouses close enough to the majority of the population that shipping time could be guaranteed. It required deep relationships with shipping carriers, primarily UPS and FedEx in the early years. And it required the kind of operational precision in fulfillment centers that made it possible to get an order out the door on the same day it was placed so that the 2 days remaining for transit were sufficient. the fulfillment center network grew significantly in the years after Prime launched, expanding to more locations and gradually moving closer to major population centers. The buildings themselves became more sophisticated over time as well. The early centers had been relatively simple warehouses where human workers moved through aisles picking items. As the volume of orders grew, the company began experimenting with automation. The automation of fulfillment centers happened gradually and in stages. Early efforts focused on things like conveyor systems that could move boxes from one part of the building to another without requiring workers to carry them. Scanners and barcode systems made it easier to confirm that the right item had been picked. Sorting systems that could read package labels and direct packages to the right shipping lane reduced the need for manual sorting. In 2012, Amazon acquired a company called Kiva Systems, which made small robotic devices that could move underneath portable shelving units and carry them to wherever a worker needed to pick from them. Instead of workers walking many miles through a warehouse every day to reach the locations of items, the shelves came to the workers. This changed the ergonomics of the job and increased the density of storage, since the shelves could be packed more closely together when robots were navigating between them rather than humans. It also increased the speed of picking, because the time a worker spent walking between picks was reduced. The robotic systems were eventually deployed across many fulfillment centers and became one of the signature technologies of the operation. Alongside the physical expansion of logistics, Amazon was also investing heavily in technology that would change how customers interacted with the company. One thread of this was the development of better algorithms for recommending products. The recommendation system, the feature that shows you products similar to what you've looked at or bought before, is easy to take for granted now, but it was meaningfully better at Amazon than elsewhere in the early 2000s, and it was improving constantly. The foundation of good recommendations was data. Amazon had, by the mid-2000s, accumulated an enormous amount of data about what customers had bought, what they had looked at, what they had searched for, and what they had reviewed. The challenge was to use that data in ways that were actually helpful to customers, not just statistically sophisticated but genuinely useful in helping people find things they wanted. The engineers and scientists working on recommendations spent years developing and testing different approaches, measuring their effects on whether customers clicked on recommendations and whether they ultimately bought those products. The recommendation system was also part of a broader orientation toward personalization, toward the idea that the experience of using Amazon should feel different for different people based on their history and preferences. When you visited the site, the things you saw, the suggestions you received, the deals highlighted for you, should ideally reflect something about who you were and what you were likely to want. This vision of a personalized shopping experience was ambitious and technically demanding, and it was something that improved over many years. Meanwhile, outside of the United States, Amazon was expanding its operations internationally. It entered the United Kingdom and Germany in 1998, France and Japan in 2000, Canada in 2002, and then more countries over the following years. Each international expansion involved its own specific challenges, because retail markets, customer expectations, regulatory environments, and logistics infrastructure varied significantly from country to country. What worked in the United States didn't automatically work in Japan or France or India. The company had to adapt. The entry into Japan was particularly interesting because Japan had a well-developed retail culture with high standards for service and presentation, and there were significant questions about whether a foreign internet retailer would be trusted by Japanese consumers. Amazon Japan made significant efforts to localize the experience, including hiring local leadership and adapting the product catalog and the service model to Japanese expectations. Over time, it became one of the most successful international markets. India presented a different set of challenges. The infrastructure for e-commerce, including reliable internet access, banking systems that supported online payments, and delivery networks that could reach the diverse geography of the country, was less developed than in Western markets when Amazon entered. Amazon invested heavily in building the infrastructure it needed, including developing systems for cash on delivery, which was necessary in a market where many people preferred or were limited to paying in cash, and for working with local delivery services that could navigate the complex logistics of shipping to addresses across India. The international expansion was not always smooth. There were markets where Amazon entered and found more competition than anticipated, or where its model required more adaptation than it had made. China was the most notable case where Amazon struggled significantly. Alibaba and JD.com had strong market positions in China, and the specific characteristics of the Chinese e-commerce market were difficult for Amazon to navigate. After many years of trying, Amazon substantially reduced its operations in China, a rare retreat in a company that tended to persist in the face of difficulty. But even that retreat was handled with the same methodical quality that characterized everything else: a careful analysis of the situation, a decision based on the analysis, and an orderly adjustment. Returning to the United States, the middle years of the 2010s were marked by continued expansion in multiple directions simultaneously. The grocery business was something Amazon had looked at for a long time without fully committing to. Groceries were a huge category of spending, something almost every household bought every week. But they were also logistically difficult. Fresh produce, meat, dairy, and other perishable items required cold storage and fast delivery. They spoiled. They varied in quality. The customer expectations around freshness were high, and the window for error was narrow. Amazon had experimented with grocery delivery in Seattle under a service called Amazon Fresh starting in 2007. The service grew slowly and carefully because the logistics were genuinely complicated to get right. Each delivery required keeping cold items cold during transit, timing the delivery so that the customer was home or that a suitable place existed for the items to be left, and ensuring that produce arrived in acceptable condition. These challenges were manageable but required investment and attention. In 2017, Amazon made a dramatic move in the grocery space by acquiring Whole Foods Market, a chain of about 460 natural and organic grocery stores across the United States, United Kingdom, and Canada. The acquisition cost about $13.5 billion, which was at the time the largest acquisition Amazon had ever made. It gave the company physical locations in high-traffic areas across the country, a trusted brand associated with quality and healthy food, and direct access to the existing operations, relationships, and expertise of an established grocery retailer. The acquisition also signaled something about how Amazon was thinking about the relationship between physical and online retail. For much of its history, Amazon had been defined by its ability to succeed without physical stores, to offer a better selection at competitive prices through a purely online model. But by the mid-2010s it was becoming clear that physical retail wasn't going away, that many customers still wanted to buy certain things in person, and that having physical locations could be an advantage rather than a burden if they were the right kinds of locations managed in the right ways. Amazon had actually been moving in this direction before the Whole Foods acquisition. It had opened physical Amazon bookstores, small retail locations that sold books and Amazon devices, in several cities. It had experimented with Amazon Go stores, convenience stores with a technology-driven checkout experience that used cameras and sensors to track what customers picked up and charged them automatically when they left, eliminating the traditional checkout line entirely. These were small-scale experiments, but they reflected a genuine curiosity about how physical and digital retail might work together. The Whole Foods acquisition gave that curiosity a much larger canvas. Amazon Prime discounts were introduced at Whole Foods stores, giving Prime members a reason to shop there and giving Whole Foods customers a reason to consider becoming Prime members. Amazon lockers were installed in stores, giving customers a place to pick up Amazon packages. The integration of the two kinds of commerce, physical and digital, was ongoing, and the shape it would ultimately take was still developing. Alongside the grocery expansion, Amazon was also developing its own private label brands. The company had access to enormous amounts of data about what customers were buying, what they were searching for, what price points they were comfortable with, and what qualities they valued. This data was a resource for understanding where there were opportunities to offer products that customers wanted at prices or with qualities that weren't being well served by existing brands. Amazon began developing its own products in various categories, from batteries to clothing to household goods, sold under various brand names. These private label products competed alongside the branded products of other companies on Amazon's marketplace. This development was something that generated some controversy, because it meant that Amazon was simultaneously serving as a platform for other sellers and competing against those sellers with its own products, using data from the platform to inform its competitive strategy. Whether this arrangement was fair or whether it raised concerns about the exercise of market power was something that attracted attention from regulators and critics in various countries. The debate around this question was part of a broader set of questions about whether companies of Amazon's size and scope raised issues that required new thinking about regulation. Those broader questions about scale and market power were becoming more prominent by the late 2010s. Amazon's growth had continued, and the company had become one of the most valuable in the world. It was a major employer, a major logistics operator, a major technology platform, a major media company through its entertainment and content activities, a major cloud computing provider. The many different things Amazon was doing were both a source of its continued growth and a source of scrutiny. One of those activities that deserves attention for its own sake is Amazon's content production. The Amazon Prime Video service, which offered streaming movies and television, grew out of the same logic as other Prime benefits, which was to increase the value of membership and give Prime members more reasons to remain members. But it evolved into something more substantial. Amazon began producing its own original content, funding the development and production of television series and films that would appear exclusively on its platform. The original content strategy was in some ways similar to what Netflix was doing at the same time, and in some ways different. Both companies recognized that exclusive content gave subscribers a reason to stay, and was harder to replicate than licensed content that could be available on multiple platforms. Amazon's particular approach involved being willing to experiment, to fund projects that might not fit conventional commercial formulas, to allow creators unusual creative freedom in exchange for the exclusive relationship. Some of the early results were remarkable by any standard. Shows that won multiple awards, shows that attracted critical and popular attention, showed that an internet company could produce television at the level of the best traditional studios. The content investment was expensive, running to billions of dollars per year across the industry. But it was an investment in the cumulative value of the Prime membership, in keeping subscribers engaged, in giving Amazon a presence in the cultural conversation. The voice assistant Alexa and the Echo speaker devices, which launched in 2014, represented another thread of Amazon's expansion into the home. The Echo was a simple device in its physical form, a cylinder with speakers and a microphone, but it was interesting for what it could do. It listened for its wake word, responded to spoken questions, played music, provided information, managed shopping lists and reminders, and could be connected to other smart home devices to control them by voice. It was an interface between the human voice and the capabilities of the Internet, a way of making information and services accessible without the need for a screen or a keyboard. The development of Alexa required years of work on voice recognition technology, on natural language processing, on the systems needed to interpret what a person was asking and respond appropriately. The technology had been improving for years before the Echo launched, and while it wasn't perfect, it was good enough to be genuinely useful for a significant range of tasks. Customers adopted it in large numbers. The Echo and its successors became common household items, and Alexa became integrated into many other devices, from televisions to cars. The Echo also served an interesting function in the broader Amazon ecosystem. A customer who had an Echo in their kitchen and who used it regularly might ask Alexa to order household items, to reorder products they had bought before, to add things to their shopping cart. The voice assistant made Amazon accessible in a new way, in moments and contexts where opening a phone or a computer would be inconvenient. It was another way of deepening the relationship between customers and the Amazon platform, another kind of integration into daily life. Amazon's relationship with small businesses and independent sellers evolved in complex ways over the years. The third-party marketplace that had started as a supplement to Amazon's own retail operation had grown to the point where it represented the majority of units sold. This meant that most of what customers bought on Amazon was not bought from Amazon directly but from one of the millions of independent sellers who listed products through the platform. Amazon made money from these transactions through fees, and the sellers made money by reaching Amazon's enormous customer base. For many small sellers, the marketplace represented a genuine opportunity, a way to reach customers they couldn't have reached otherwise, a distribution channel that would have been unimaginable before the internet. The barrier to starting a small retail business had been lowered significantly by the existence of platforms like Amazon's. You could sell products from your home, from a small warehouse, without needing your own website or your own marketing infrastructure, by simply listing products on a platform with hundreds of millions of active customers. But the relationship was also complicated. The fees were significant. The rules of the marketplace were set by Amazon and could change. If Amazon decided to sell a category of products that you had been selling profitably as an independent seller, it could compete with you directly, with the advantage of knowing from data exactly what the demand looked like. Sellers who built their businesses primarily around the Amazon marketplace were dependent on Amazon in ways that created vulnerability. The platform could be vital and constraining at the same time. This dynamic, of a platform that was both enabling and limiting for the businesses that used it, was one of the structural features of the Amazon economy that attracted ongoing attention. Regulators in the United States and Europe began to look more closely at how Amazon managed the marketplace, at whether the data it collected from third-party sellers was used in competitive ways, at whether the policies it imposed on sellers were fair. These investigations and regulatory discussions were ongoing and complex, involving questions about market definition, competitive harm, and the appropriate limits of market power. While these external conversations were happening, Amazon continued to invest in the infrastructure that made everything else possible. One area of investment that became increasingly significant in the 2010s was delivery. The company had long depended primarily on UPS, FedEx, and the United States Postal Service to deliver packages to customers' doors. These carriers were essential partners but also constraints. Their schedules, their pricing, their capacity, their geographic coverage all affected what Amazon could offer customers in terms of delivery speed and reliability. The development of Amazon's own delivery capacity, what came to be called Amazon Logistics, was a response to these constraints. Rather than being entirely dependent on third-party carriers, Amazon began building its own fleet of delivery vans, hiring its own drivers, and managing last-mile delivery, meaning the final leg of a package's journey from a local distribution center to a customer's door, in more and more markets. This was a large and complex undertaking. Managing a delivery fleet means managing drivers, managing vehicles, managing routes, managing customer interactions, handling the problems that arise when a delivery doesn't go as planned. It's not purely a technology problem. It's a people problem and a logistics problem and a customer service problem all at once. Amazon developed software to optimize routes, to track drivers in real time, to communicate with customers about their deliveries, and it developed the training and management systems to work with large numbers of delivery drivers. A distinctive feature of Amazon's delivery model was the development of what it called delivery service partners, independent businesses that contracted with Amazon to operate delivery fleets under the Amazon brand. Rather than hiring all delivery drivers as Amazon employees, the company created a structure where small businesses could be formed specifically to deliver Amazon packages, with Amazon providing training, equipment specifications, and ongoing work. This model allowed Amazon to scale its delivery capacity quickly while limiting the number of people it employed directly as drivers, though this arrangement also generated its own set of labor questions and debates. Sunday delivery, which had previously been unavailable for most carriers, became something Amazon offered in many markets. Same-day delivery was extended to more cities and more products. The ambition of compressing the time between when a customer placed an order and when they had it in hand was something that drove continuous investment and experimentation. Drone delivery was something Amazon researched and tested over many years under the name Prime Air. The idea of packages being delivered by small unmanned aircraft was appealing because drones could potentially be faster than ground vehicles in some situations, bypassing traffic and delivering directly to a specific location. The technical challenges were significant, involving airspace management, obstacle avoidance, weather tolerance, and the specific challenge of identifying the right landing spot at a customer's property. Regulatory approvals added another layer of complexity. The technology developed slowly and continued to be tested in limited programs, representing more of a long-term research direction than an immediate operational reality. Prime Air, like several other ambitious Amazon projects, illustrated a tendency in the company to invest in things that might not pay off for a very long time, to maintain what might be called a patience fund of research and development that explored possibilities whose practical realization was still years away. Alongside drone delivery, Amazon invested in autonomous ground vehicles for last-mile delivery, in AI research across many domains, in satellite internet access through a project called Kuiper, and in healthcare, acquiring companies and building services in an industry where it saw both disruption, opportunity, and enormous complexity. The healthcare interest resulted in the acquisition of PillPack in 2018, a pharmacy service that sorted medications into individual packets organized by the time they needed to be taken, making it easier for people managing multiple prescriptions. It also resulted in the development of Amazon Care, a telehealth and in-home care service initially offered to Amazon employees and later expanded. And it resulted in the acquisition of One Medical in 2022, a primary care company with physical clinics and a technology-enabled service model. Healthcare was a sector characterized by complexity, regulation, and entrenched existing systems, and Amazon's efforts to work within and around those systems were ongoing. The story of Amazon during the early 2020s was shaped in large part by the pandemic that began in 2020. The sudden global shift in how people lived and worked and shopped accelerated trends that had been developing for years. With physical stores closed or limited, online shopping grew very rapidly. Amazon's order volume increased dramatically. The warehouses and delivery networks that had been built over many years were stressed by a sudden surge in demand, and the company hired hundreds of thousands of additional workers to meet it. This rapid expansion brought into sharp focus questions about working conditions in Amazon's fulfillment centers and delivery operations. The work was physically demanding, and the pace of work was high. The metrics by which workers were evaluated, the time taken to pick each item, the rate at which items were handled, were precise and demanding. Labor advocates and journalists wrote extensively about conditions in the warehouses, about injury rates, about the pressure of the work. Amazon disputed some of the characterizations but also made changes over time, adjusting policies and increasing wages. The question of how Amazon treated its workers was connected to broader questions about the nature of work in an economy increasingly shaped by large technology companies. These were not questions with simple answers, but they were questions that would not go away and that the company continued to grapple with. By the mid-2020s, Amazon stood as something without a clear precedent, a company that had started by selling books and had grown into an entity that was simultaneously one of the world's largest retailers, one of its largest cloud computing providers, one of its largest media and entertainment companies, a significant logistics operator, a major employer, a platform on which millions of independent businesses built their operations, and a technology company researching futures that would only arrive years or decades hence. The origin of all of this was a garage in Seattle, a folding table, some packing tape, a basic website, and the insight that the growth of the internet was creating a moment that called for something new. What emerged from that beginning was built deliberately, one step following another, each decision responding to what had been learned from the last. If you think about the arc of it, from a single man typing a business plan in the passenger seat of a car to a network of fulfillment centers spanning continents, from a simple online bookstore to a company that processes more computing transactions than almost anything else in the world, it becomes one of those stories that can be hard to hold in mind all at once. But it wasn't built all at once. It was built slowly, and each piece connected to the pieces around it, and each year made possible something that hadn't been possible the year before. The books are still there. Amazon still sells books. It sells them physically and digitally, through its own inventory and through third-party sellers, and through the Kindle it designed and through the audio format it acquired when it bought Audible in 2008. The original thing is still there, nested inside everything else, the starting point still visible if you look for it. And all of it, the robots in the warehouses and the servers in the data centers and the satellites being planned for orbit, all of it connects back to that original question: what is the internet going to change, and what should I do about it? The answer that followed turned out to be longer and stranger and larger than anyone knew it would be when the question was first asked. That's the story for tonight. Something that started very small and grew very slowly into something very large, one careful step at a time. And somewhere, in a warehouse tonight, a robot is sliding quietly along a concrete floor, carrying a shelf of items towards someone who is waiting to pick from it, and the system that makes that possible grew out of a garage and a folding table and a decision made in 1994. Quiet things leading to other quiet things, and the world changing slowly because of them. Rest well tonight.